Hello, I'm Courtney Fitzgerald. I write spy novels. They fall into the mystery thriller genre. My latest book, Neighbor Resurrected, is the first in a 2-book series that includes Shopping Cart Annie. How would you feel if you grew up in the 1950s like I did, listening to a radio show called Cloak and Dagger that started like this? Are you willing to undertake a dangerous mission for the United States, knowing in advance you may never return alive? What you have just heard is a question asked during the war of agents of the OSS, ordinary citizens who, to this question, answered yes. That show was based on true World War II spy stories. Audiences loved it. OSS, by the way, later became CIA. I grew up reading spy novels by Graham Greene, Eric Ambler, Robert Ludlum, and wanted to become a spy myself until I realized that for reasons that were sometimes political and sometimes racist, there probably weren't very many African American spies. My main character is a retired African American school teacher named Dr. Inez Buchanan, who over a 40-year career developed unique observation skills and a knack for teaching etiquette through her own example. Like most teachers, she has eyes in the back of her head and can smell danger hanging overhead. When the neighbor dies who befriended Inez in her predominantly white neighborhood, his family and friends believe it was a heart attack. 6 months later, Galen's grown daughters think differently. They suspect murder based on ambiguities and attempt to persuade Inez to investigate. After 2 police are killed, terrorists become suspects, and one of Galen's daughters, goes missing, Inez gives wholeheartedly into the investigation. But police are not convinced it's murder. And with the help of a former student, Inez becomes an amateur sleuth who inadvertently grabs the attention of brazen international spies and the CIA. Spycraft has changed over the years, and I make sure my readers get thrown into current foreign intrigues, adventurous locations, and sudden terror. All the things I enjoyed as a reader. I'm currently working on my 3rd Inez Buchanan novel, where the CIA asked her to join. You can buy my novels and ebooks at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Hope you enjoy the adventures. Find more information at courtneyfitzgerald.com. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dwayne McKenna, here to introduce my latest novel, Unforsaken. Unforsaken takes place in Colorado Springs and Texas in the year 1901. By then, the Old West was just a memory, and the new century still a promise. That's when a Texas woman's search for her missing brother draws the attention of a hard-boiled Texas Ranger who's on the trail of a notorious outlaw and murderer. When they realize they're both looking for the same man, Ella Stringfellow and Boyd Pirtle's lives intersect as they uncover a conspiracy which impacts the entire nation. At the same time, Pirtle works to unravel and solve a 20-year-old murder that has little evidence and few clues, a mystery which ultimately leads to a shattering confession and stunning conclusion, and only one of the 3 will still be alive to tell the tale. Unforsaken was a Peacemaker finalist for the Best First Western of 2019. It can be purchased at any bookstore and on Amazon in both hard copy and ebook format, and signed copies are available on my website, JohnDwayneMcKenna.com. Thank you, and remember, bookmarks are for quitters.
Karen, thanks for having me. I've read a lot about your books, and what is a cozy mystery?
A cozy mystery is a subgenre of crime fiction. There's no sex, violence, or language. It's very PG rated. There is a murder that takes place, of course, because it's a mystery, but the murder's not described graphically and there's no detail. Also, an amateur sleuth solves the crime rather than a police detective or a private detective. And the crime takes place in an intimate setting, such as a small town or a village.
So, what's a culinary cozy mystery? There's such a thing, right?
Right. There's a subgenre of cozy that's called a culinary cozy. And that's when the book has as a central theme food. And in my mysteries, it involves a dinner club group. So, of course, the dinner club is taking meals together. They're going to restaurants. When they travel abroad, they experience the cuisine of other countries. So food is central to the story.
Do people ever ask you for the recipes that come?
Yes, they do.
I was wondering. Great.
Originally, in my first couple of books, I only included hints and suggestions for how to start a dinner club, how to ask people to be in a dinner club, who to ask, because it's important that people are committed, menu ideas, party theme ideas, and then readers asked me for recipes. So I started including recipes in starting with book 3. And I do have right here pumpkin bread.
Oh boy.
This is included in book number 5, just what I needed.
Can I have some?
Yes. I got this recipe from another author, Deborah St. John, who writes romances. She sent me the recipe. I tried it here in my kitchen, had to include it in the book. Do you
Thank
like
you,
that?
Deborah.
It's good.
Very good. So how do people find your books?
I'm on Amazon, Barnes & Noble website, the publisher's website. The Wild Rose Press is my publisher. And I also have my own website with links to the books. And in addition, on my website, I have a recipe blog and I have a Pinterest board. I encourage my readers to post recipes on my Pinterest board. I try them out and they might just make it into one of my books.
Fantastic. Now, if you'll turn that way, I'm going to run off with this loaf. Anyway, thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Finding Adley opens in Essex, England on a cold March morning in 1930. 3 girls are alone in the attic of a large country home. 2 of the girls are sisters, and the third is a friend. The sisters, Cora and Sarah Osborne, share an unbreakable bond. With their mother wheelchair-bound and their country home shut off from most of the outside world, they rely on each other almost exclusively. Sarah especially, after her eyesight faded 3 years before, turns to Cora for help with her basic needs, to soothe her greatest fears, and to explain a world that had suddenly gone dark. The friend, a very charismatic girl named Adley Moore, is beloved only by Cora. Their friendship was born after a recent family tragedy, and her presence threatens to pull the sisters apart. Everything Sarah knows about her sister and her world hangs in the balance. In the attic room, it's immediately apparent that something is very wrong between the 2 friends. Sarah overhears Cora violently arguing with Adley over a missing locket. A locket that Sarah knows means more than the world itself to Cora. The scene escalates quickly and a gun goes off, ending Cora's life. By the time the girls are found, a traumatized Sarah is sobbing over her sister's body and Adley is nowhere to be found. From there, the story picks up in 2006 with a world-famous biographer, Ginny Mercy, who's sitting at her desk listening to a message on her answering machine. The voice on the machine is desperate. It begs Ginny to write a story about 2 sisters, a missing locket, a murder witnessed only by a blind girl, and a killer who escaped without a trace. It's soon revealed that the voice belongs to none other than Sarah's granddaughter Myrtle, who is determined to hire Ginny, claiming the biographer's ability to unearth secrets long lost to the past could only be called miraculous. The pull of the story proves too much for Ginny to ignore. Soon Ginny and Myrtle dive into Sarah's cherished memories and a mystery over 70 years old. Without giving anything away, it was the end of the story that came to me first. I had this image in my head of 3 girls in an attic. They were alone and set apart from the hustle and bustle of the great and grand Victorian home below them. One of the girls was holding a gun, and the tension in the room was so strained it seemed that the slightest breath could cause the snap. From there, I had to construct the story backwards, wondering what led the girls to that attic and why it ended with a gun. As I started working to fill in the plot, at one point the process came to a standstill. Some of the answers weren't coming very easily, and I was frustrated and decided to put the story away for a while. I remember turning on my favorite Disney fairy tale, Beauty and the Beast, hoping it would be a welcome distraction. But my mood was still really agitated. I had been questioning things like plot and story for what seemed like ages by then, and suddenly I found myself doing the same thing to Beauty and the Beast. Eventually, though, I landed on 2 important questions. What if Belle never came to Beast Castle? Or if she came, what would happen if she was too late? What if the last petal from the rose had fallen and the curse couldn't be broken? Ironically, the questions about my story and how it all fit together couldn't be answered until I asked these questions about Beauty and the Beast, and that was when all the parts and fragments for Finding Adley finally fell into place. A darker take on Beauty and the Beast wasn't my only inspiration, though. It's safe to say that much of it came from immersing myself in literature and timeless stories from other great authors. Authors like Jane Austen, William Shakespeare, Dorothy Dunnett, Elizabeth Marie Pope, Eloise Jarvis McGraw, Megan Whalen Turner, and so many more. But it wasn't until I came across the books by best-selling Australian author Kate Morton that I finally realized the kind of author I wanted to be. Anyone familiar with her books will know what I mean. The generational mysteries, the multiple timeline narratives, and the beauty and the satisfaction of all the pieces coming together at the end. That's the kind of story I love to read, and that's the kind of story I worked really hard to tell in Finding Adley. Finding Adley is quite simply about finding a girl named Adley. It spans 2 timelines where tiny clues scattered throughout the narrative answer the 2 pivotal questions: who is she and where did she go? The story is replete with all of my favorite things. There's friendship and humor, love and heartbreak. There are devastating secrets and complicated loyalties. There's an old abandoned country home filled to the brim with forgotten memories. And of course, at the story's heart, there's a disconcerting but highly bewitching mystery. If any of these things call to you the way they call to me, I encourage you to give Finding Adley a try.
The Lucky Hat Mine by J.V.L. Bell. Best-selling author Sandra Dallas described The Lucky Hat Mine in her Denver Post review as a fun read. She described it as being filled with period details and real-life pioneers. Millie Virginia knew that answering a wife wanted ad in 1863 was risky business, but as an orphan with no means, what other choice did she have? She survived the perilous journey across the Great Plains and reached Denver City. From there, she caught a stagecoach to the small mining town of Idaho Springs, but she had no idea what awaited her.
The coach stopped, and Millie climbed from the dusty stagecoach, her hands shaking. She turned and stared at the silent crowd. No man stepped forward to claim her. Hesitantly, wishing she knew how to pronounce the name she'd soon acquire, she asked, "Is Mr. Mr. Droyle dead?" screamed a shrill voice. "He's dead, you poor, poor girl, so young and already a widow."
Stuck in the small mining town of Idaho Springs, Millie soon discovers there are numerous men, rather undesirable, that would like to get their hands on her former fiancé's mine and cabin, and they wouldn't mind a wife to boot.
A short, portly man with a tight-cropped mustache and a small triangular beard stepped forward. Don't worry none, Widow D. I'm Lewis N. Tappan III. You mourn a bit, as is proper, a day, maybe two, then we can marry. He waved toward a smaller building down the street. We'll live behind my shop, as the bard once wrote. He pitched his voice deep.
The Lucky Hat Mine by J.V.L. Bell. Best-selling author Sandra Dallas described The Lucky Hat Mine in her Denver Post review as a fun read. She described it as being filled with period details and real-life pioneers. Millie Virginia knew that answering a wife wanted ad in 1863 was risky business, but as an orphan with no means, what other choice did she have? She survived the perilous journey across the Great Plains and reached Denver City. From there she caught a stagecoach to the small mining town of Idaho Springs, but she had no idea what awaited her.
The coach stopped, and Millie climbed from the dusty stagecoach, her hands shaking. She turned and stared at the silent crowd. No man stepped forward to claim her. Hesitantly, wishing she knew how to pronounce the name she'd soon acquire, she asked, Is Mr. Mr. Droyle dead? Screamed a shrill voice. He's dead, you poor, poor girl, so young and already a widow.
Stuck in the small mining town of Idaho Springs, Millie soon discovers there are numerous men, rather undesirable, that would like to get their hands on her former fiancé's mine and cabin, and they wouldn't mind a wife to boot.
A short, portly man with a tight-cropped mustache and a small triangular beard stepped forward. Don't worry none, Widow D. I'm Lewis N. Tappan III. You mourn a bit, as is proper, a day, maybe two, then we can marry. He waved toward a smaller building down the street. We'll live behind my shop, as the bard once wrote. He pitched his voice deep. A heaven on earth I have won by wooing thee. Lifting his hand so she could see he carried a book, he added, You'll find me a learned man. Brother Bunce'll say so. Brother Bunce? Millie echoed. Hold on one gosh darn minute, old Shakespeare, said a thin man dressed in black and white striped coveralls, reminding Millie of a scarecrow wearing chain-gang cast-offs. He stepped forward, giving Millie a better view of just how many patches covered his faded overalls. I'll be marrying her after a proper mourning. He grinned, and through his thick beard, Millie saw numerous gaps between his rotting teeth. I'm Asa poor, but I ain't poor. My prospecting found me plenty of gold. He pulled a long, narrow sack from his pocket. See, my poke's full. He lifted his eyebrows. Want to see my nuggets?
Author J.V.L. Bell has enjoyed intermixing Colorado's vibrant history and historical characters into a fun, cozy murder mystery that can be enjoyed by the whole family. I hope you enjoyed the Lucky Hat Mine, and if you get a chance, please take the Lucky Hat Mine quiz and see if you can determine fact from fiction. The Lucky Hat Mine was published by the Hanson Publishing Group. It can be purchased at any independent bookstore, although if you'd like a signed or personalized copy, please contact the author at julie@jvlbell.com. It can also be purchased as an ebook or as an audiobook, or if you'd like to get it on CDs, please contact the author. Thanks so much, and I hope you enjoy the Lucky Hat Mine.